Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vision and Purpose Media Production. And today we have a special edition. It's all about Stop Bullying Month, and we are beating bullying, beat bullying. And we have a special presentation that's coming for you. And without further ado, I would like to bring to the stage Cortland Jones. Yay!
Thank you, Karen, and welcome everyone. Welcome, young people, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for being here. Today's topic is about beating bullying. Beat bullying. Be empowered and triumph against bullying. Specifically today, I want to talk about what we can do to invest in ourselves, to invest in our well-being, how we see ourselves, the things that we can do to make us feel good about ourselves, as well as contribute positively to the community around us. I want to begin by just telling a brief little story about why I'm standing here today, specifically as it relates to the subject of bullying. So when I was a child, at 5 years old, I began to draw from comic books because I really love comic books. In fact, yesterday, my son and I went to see Black Adam. And it just really reinforced to me how much this is what I want to do at this stage of my life. By the time I graduated from college, I knew I wanted to write and illustrate children's books. At that time, it wasn't paying the bills, so I had to get a job. And so I became a teacher. In the time I became a teacher, I taught art, I taught graphic design, and I taught writing. The reason why I brought up my childhood, when I was in high school, my friends and I went to King's Dominion. How many of you have ever gone to an amusement park? Ever did something fun at an amusement park? So my friends and I went to King's Dominion in high school, and we were standing in line to get ready to get on the bumper cars. I'm telling this story because it plays a role in what happened to me when I became an educator. And there were a group of Caucasian people in line with us. And my friends began to make fun of them and how they smelled because they had just got off one of the water rides. And when you get off a water ride and it's hot, there's a smell that comes with that. So my friends started to make fun of them. So we all get on the bumper cars together. And when the ride was over, I got out of my seat and I saw one of my friends running towards the other group of people with his hand cocked back. And I knew that was going to be trouble. When it all just kind of exploded the way that it did, I did two things. I grabbed one of the people they were fighting, then I grabbed one of my friends, just out of instinct. That's just what I did. I'm telling that story because at one point in my career as an educator, I actually came outside the classroom and I was involved in peer mediation, conflict resolution. My responsibility was to teach young people like you how to help their peers solve conflicts. And at the time I stepped out of the classroom and took this position, I was also heavily into reading the Bible and engaging in my faith relationship with Jesus Christ. And on one particular day, I happened to be reading the Beatitudes. And it said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God." And on that particular day, I really felt like God was telling me, this is why you're doing what you're doing. You were always purposed to do this. I created you for this. That's what I felt. When I read that verse, I felt like God was telling me, this is why you're doing peer mediation, because you are a peacemaker. And then I remembered that story in high school. I remembered that event. And so I really took to heart what I was doing working with young people. The goal was to really help them not only work with their peers, but to learn the skills that help them resolve conflict. And so putting those two things together, what happened in high school, the time I spent outside the classroom, 10 years doing peer mediation, my life has now come full circle because I've retired from education, and one of my little mantras was, I retired from the field but not from the mission. And here I am today, still working with youth, still engaged in the community, and talking about conflict resolution. And all of this is inspired from a book I wrote, which is what I'll get into. But I want us to go ahead and get started. Each of you have a folder, and in that folder there is content specific to what we're going to do today. It's going to be interactive. We're going to start with an activity called self-inventory, something I would actually do when I was working with youth in the schools. And in your bag you have a pen. So I want you to open your folder. And when you open your folder, you're going to look to your left, and you're going to see a self-inventory sheet. And we're going to start with that activity. And the adults can use the one that's in their folder as well. Everybody has a pen in their bag. And in that folder, you're going to see a self-image inventory sheet. And what we're going to do, it's not going to take that long. We're going to take a few minutes to take inventory of how you see yourself. Self-image has to do with how you see yourself, okay? So what I would like for you to do, you got all these words at the very left, right? And then in that middle column, it says put a 0, right, or put a O on the way you see yourself currently, okay? So what I would like for you to do is to do that middle column first. Put a letter O next to the words that you believe define who you are currently, how you see yourself. So go ahead and do that. And if you have any questions about what the words mean, feel free to ask. Don't be afraid or ashamed to ask what a word means. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to take inventory of how we see ourselves. Once you finish the O section, the middle section, you can then do the third column. Are there any words on that list that you would like to be, that you don't think you are currently? So while you are checking your list, I'm gonna tell you something I learned about myself recently. So I launched my own business in 2014, published my first book in 2014 as well. And I realized a few years ago, because it's been 8 years, publishing the book helped me to learn how to overcome procrastination. Prior to publishing my first book, I used to struggle with getting things done. And I was an adult at the time. 8 years ago, that would be 47. So well into my adulthood, I was struggling with getting things done. Um, I've learned so much. But what I learned about why I was procrastinating, it was because sometimes I didn't know what to do, or I had so many things I wanted to do, I could not focus to get things done. So I was overwhelmed, because on top of the things you want to do, there are the things you have to do. And so I would always wait till the last minute. And when you wait to the last minute to try to do everything, you usually end up doing nothing, because you just don't want to get things done. So I learned through the initiative to write and publish the book. That's how I learned to overcome procrastination. What I learned through the process was how to set a schedule to get things done, to make big tasks seem more possible by chunking it one step at a time. And since that time, having a calendar to hold myself accountable to what I needed to do. And then sometimes confidence. Sometimes I don't get started because I don't feel like it's something I can do. So learning how to be more confident in myself and not let my feelings interfere with moving forward. So while I'm sharing that, it looks like we are making progress with our list. So who wants to be courageous and share one thing that they put a O next to? Who would like to share one thing that they see themselves as currently? Do I have any courageous volunteers? Yes.
I see myself as friendly.
I love that. Oh, so do you feel okay going up there to share in the mic what you shared? So we have one courageous person who was ready to share. I want everybody to be courageous to share one thing. And can you say your name and then what you identified?
I'm JoJo, and I feel friendly. That's the thing that I am right now.
I love that. There's a proverb that says, he who desires friends must be friendly. They must show themselves as friendly. Being friendly doesn't guarantee that your friends are going to be friendly to you all the time, but friendliness is a skill by which I gain friends. I struggled with low self-esteem as a child, so I had to learn how to engage people around me. The way I did that was to listen. So when I was in the company of people, I would listen to them. To this day, I have people who tell me, you were such a good listener when we were growing up. I really value who you are because you just seem to always listen to me. So I learned how to connect with people through listening. And it actually plays a huge role in what I do now as an empowerment coach. So I understood growing up when I started my business, that was one of the things I knew I was good at, which now translates to what I do in my business. Who else wants to share? Thank you. Can you come up to the mic and share?
Hi, I'm Tabari, and I see myself as impulsive.
Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate you being vulnerable. I appreciate you being vulnerable and transparent to be willing to share something that we may not want other people to know because it's not one of those things that we would actually applaud, right? But what I've learned over my life is that everybody has things about themselves they don't necessarily like, and that's okay. That's okay because we're all human. Everybody has flaws. And so it's important for me to know what mine are. In fact, it takes courage and strength to acknowledge that in front of other people. So not only was he talking about his flaw, but he was demonstrating courage and strength by doing it publicly. So that also makes him courageous and strong. Do we have at least one more person who wants to share something that they see themselves as? Okay, can you step up to the mic?
My name is Karen, and I see myself as a bossy person.
Look, I must say, Karen and Karen, that bossy thing, it must runs in the family.
So let me tell you from a teacher's perspective, the silver lining of a bossy person, a bossy child, okay? What we were trained to understand about that type of child is that they are confident in who they are. They know what they want, and they can articulate it. They can verbalize it. Skills of a leader. We have children in our classroom who have the capacity to lead. They have the ability to lead. It's already in them. What they need is opportunity to be bossy in a healthy way, to learn how to use those communication skills, that confidence to lead others. That's a hard thing to do for a teacher who also feels confident in what they're doing as the educator. Nobody's going to run my room. That's the type of teacher I was, okay? I had to learn how to work with my leaders in my classroom. And I used to say to myself, I'm good at getting along with the kids that get along with me. I had to learn how to get along with the kids who were bossy. I had to learn that. So that means I had to change my perspective, the way I looked at the child, and then learn how to put them in a position to actually lead in a healthy way. When I came outside the classroom, I learned how to do that more effectively in a way that actually changed school communities. Do I have one other volunteer? And we're going to go to that third list, and then we're going to move to the next activity, okay?
Hi, I'm Kobe, and I think I'm smart.
You know you smart.
Awesome. So let me just share this, and then we're going to go to the next column. It's important that you see yourself as smart. When I was in elementary school, I did not do well in math. I did not feel good about not doing well in math. But in high school, I figured it out. The light bulb came on in high school. There was a teacher who was instrumental in that. The character in my children's book also struggles with math. So some of who I am as an individual was included in this story because I wanted children to be relatable to the character and the character to them. What I say now to my friends, even at my best, I'm still human, which simply means I'm still going to have struggles. Even at my best, I'm still going to have struggles. That doesn't make me a bad person. That doesn't make me less than. But it is important to believe that I'm smart, to believe that I'm capable, to see the value in who I am. All right, so who I would like to be. I just need at least 2 or 3 people to share that, and then we're going to move on.
Hi, it's Tabari again. I would like to be uninvolved because I'm I feel I'm too involved in stuff that I shouldn't be in.
I love that. Thank you. And let me just say how important understanding that is, because as we get older, there's opportunity to do a lot of things. But we can overextend ourselves to the point where we're not getting anything done, or we're overworking our body. We're too involved to the point where our body's not getting rest. Our mind is not getting rest. And so self-care, self-love is a new thing. It's always been important, but now they're talking about it more because of the reality of the pandemic. Understanding when I'm too involved is important because now I need to pull back. I need to focus on what matters most. That's something I learned. Urgency was my word for September. And what I learned from urgency is that I have to focus on the things that matter most. Everything can't be urgent. And so I have to learn how to prioritize from day to day, month to month, the things that I need to do. So anybody else want to share? Step up to the mic, please.
Hello, my name is Nancy, and as I would like to be is honest because that's one of the most difficult thing that I want to, succeed. I just want to be honest, and I know it's like hard to be honest, but try not to be afraid.
Awesome. So the first thing I want to share, I want to commend you because you just did that today in front of a whole group of people. You were honest about the fact that you want to be honest. That, again, takes courage. If people knew me as a child, they would be surprised to see me standing here today because I didn't talk as a child. I spent a lot of time in quiet, silence. I had the ability to speak, I just didn't talk. And actually, one of my colleagues is here. She saw me as an adult speaking publicly before parents, but if you saw me as a child, you would be shocked. Around family members, I didn't even talk. So life happens, good and bad. And I had some positive experiences along the way. What actually helped me learn how to start talking, I was a listener first. I was incredibly shy. So, you start having interest in girls as you get older. And I'm going to be honest, just like you're saying, being honest. My way of connecting with the female was to ask if I could take their pictures. Because in college, I was a photography major. So that was the way I pushed myself out of my comfort zone to learn how to engage with other people, to actually start talking with other people. But it didn't end there. To show you how the struggle with talking was so serious, I'm an adult now, working, teaching. I'm sitting in a team meeting with the other members of the team. I was part of the creative arts team. And everybody was just talking. And on a particular day, I decided to speak up. And I kid you not, one of my team members turned to me and said, "Oh my gosh, he speaks." So that's how serious I was at being silent around other people. And I just want to commend you for being courageous, to acknowledge, being honest. Being honest is hard because we got all these feelings that try to interfere with us being honest. And what we have to do is we have to no longer let the feelings be greater than the desire to want to grow and become this person that we want to be. Feelings are important, but they can sometimes interfere with our growth. All right, so I actually want to transition due to time. So you can put that self-inventory sheet back in your folder. Real quickly, I want you to pull out that sheet that has the name of the young lady on it, Kenya Jordana James. I just want to share with you why you have that document. So Kenya, I discovered Kenya when I was outside the classroom. I bought this book created by Essence, and it had 50 of the most influential people in the African American community. And Kenya is at the very end. She's one of the young people that they highlighted. When you read the article, you'll discover that at age 13, she realized there were no magazines that represented her as an African American girl at her age. And so she decided to create a magazine, Black Girl Magazine. What I loved about her story was the fact that not only did she value herself, she valued herself enough that she wanted to contribute positively to the community around her by recognizing what was lacking in the community for her. She took it upon herself to contribute to the community what she felt the community needed. What I have learned over time, a healthy self-esteem does not allow me to remain focused solely on myself. A healthy self-esteem will make me want to do something on behalf of community, even if it's as simple as being friendly to other people or being honest about my own personal growth. Some of you are on social media, so you don't mind talking about yourself because you feel like by doing that, you're going to help somebody else. That's what a healthy self-esteem will do. And the key is to be okay if other people don't celebrate you, if they're not, happy about what you're talking about. You're doing this not for them. You're doing it for the people who actually would benefit. And so I want you to have that article as an inspiration because believe it or not, reading about her inspired me. And that's why I still share about her because now having children of my own, I want my children to have that same healthy self-esteem, that they not only take care of themselves, but they learn how to love others, right, as we love ourselves. So that's why I wanted you to have that article. So you can put that back in your folder. The next activity is actually going to be a group discussion. So on the right side, you see our itinerary, and it's paperclip. There's all these documents. I want you to take out the document that says Activity 2. And this is where we're all going to talk. I really would like the adults in the room to join in with us as well. There are 2 sheets labeled Activity 2 involving what I call self-regulation or self-discipline or self-control. We're going to talk about how you actually would handle a situation that may involve bullying. Some of you may have actually experienced this. So if you have experienced it, we would love for you to share how you handled it, just in case someone who hasn't experienced it does, they will have learned from your situation. Okay. So basically, I need a courageous reader to read the case study. These are events that have actually happened in working with youth. I actually worked with a child who started staying home instead of coming to school because of bullying. So I do have background experience in working with youth on this subject. It was always my desire to train youth how to take ownership of their role, their part, and learning how to overcome conflict. So that's pretty much what we're going to do. Do I have a courageous reader to read the first case study? Even if it's an adult. Okay, go ahead. Read it. Can you come to the microphone and read it for us, please? And then I would love for all of us to join in discussion on what we think should happen based on the story.
Okay. Case study number 1. When you're in school, there is a student who rolls their eyes at you, sucks their teeth, and mumbles words you can't quite make out every time. But one time you clearly heard them say, "What you looking at?" And they do this consistently when they see you. Another time you heard them say, "What are you, stupid? Stop looking at me, dummy." How should you handle the situation and why?
All right, so basically you're in class, and every time you catch the eye of someone else, they roll their eyes at you, mumble under their breath, suck their teeth, and they ask you what you're looking at, and another time they ask you if you are stupid and they call you dummy. This happens more than once, and that's why it would be considered bullying. How would you handle that situation and why? Who would like to share how you think you should handle that situation? Do I have one youth among us who would like to share? What do you think? And if we don't have any youth to share, do we have one adult who doesn't mind coming to the mic to give their thoughts? Because maybe the youth among us aren't sure how to handle it. And that's okay too. We can give them some wisdom on what they think. Anybody? Go ahead, Miss Karen.
I'm gonna help you out, Courtney.
Thank you.
And so we're talking about if someone is at school, and we all experience this, or you know someone who has. I even want to talk about the flip side of that. For me, if you see someone who's been bullied, what should I, and been teased at, and it start there by name calling, rolling the eyes and name calling. And you should bring it to someone's attention. If you're the one that's is done, bring it to the, if it's at school, bring it to the teacher attention. If it's outside of school, then you need to make an adult aware of this for we can have some kind of resolution. If you see someone, and let's talk about that part of it too. If you see someone getting teased and being bullied, then you should go to them and ask, can you help? Let's take and talk to the teacher. Let's us tell the teacher or tell an adult that you are being teased and bullied, because it's not right to see someone getting bullied as well. So you have to be in unity and speak up for the one who's getting bullied, because sometimes they don't have the encourage to want to tell. You know, it's scared to tell an adult sometime because you think it's gonna make the bullying be worse because you tell a tale, you told on someone. So the giving them the confidence sometimes to speak up and tell is very important as well. So sometimes if they see somebody that see somebody else see them getting bullied and willing to help them tell, it gives them encouragement to go ahead and tell that they are being bullied.
So I appreciate what you shared. And in the time I was outside the classroom, the mediations that we would deal with often would be something like that, something that could be resolved within 20 minutes. The agreement was that the two students would no longer engage in the behavior that causes the conflict. However, when it becomes repeated, a child may get to the point where they are full of fear coming to school, coming to the classroom, telling people about what's happening, because they believe by saying something, it's going to make things worse. We unfortunately now have seen by not saying something, things actually get worse as well, because we have youth who have actually committed suicide because of bullying. So my thing to youth today would be, either way, the situation can get worse. So not saying anything is not helping you if how you're feeling on the inside is now interfering with your ability to learn or want to go to school or perform at school in a way that makes you feel good about yourself. When you're at the point where you're not functioning properly or at your best, that means it's time to talk to somebody to get help.
Just to share on the statistic side of the suicide, you know, one out of every four child that is being bullied has thought about committing suicide because of the strength of you saying not being wanting to tell. And so instead of telling, they rather just, you know, put harm on themselves because they cannot take it. They confused the pressure, or should they tell, or they tired of getting bullied. And so that's why I'm going to say again, if you know someone that's getting bullied, it's important that you give them strength and give them encouragement and help them out, because one out of every four child that's being bullied has thought of committing suicide or have committed suicide. And the youngest on record, as we know, is an 8-year-old boy who committed suicide.
So I would just want to add to that. I've been low enough. I know why people would want to commit suicide. I've been depressed enough, deep enough to understand why people do it. I had a friend that committed suicide. I had another friend who actually attempted it more than once. I have a former student who attempted it more than once. And she cites me being in her life as a reason why she decided not to commit suicide. So all I can say is life has taught me it's better to talk about it than to not talk about it. We know that bullying isn't always something simple like the story we just read. But for a lot of us, it starts that way, and it's possible that it can be dealt with if we have the courage to speak up. So the last thing I would want to say, your feelings are real, right? I used to tell kids when I was outside the classroom, you only feel what you feel because of what's happening. If what's happening wasn't happening, you wouldn't feel the way you do. So your feelings are not bad. Your feelings are not wrong. You're feeling what you're feeling because of what's happening. But what begins to happen, your mind operates on its own, because we don't always choose the thoughts that our mind has. Your imagination causes you to think that by saying something, it's going to get worse. And we know, even for an 8-year-old not saying anything, it can get worse as well. And so, what you have to do, you have to process why speaking up is going to be better than not saying something. You actually have to encourage yourself, which is a skill. That is not something we just know how to do. And as you learn to encourage yourself, you're going to learn how to be more courageous to use that gift you have, which is your voice, to speak up. Your voice has power. A 13-year-old decided, you know what, this world is in need of a magazine that represents me. And she created it. The same power that we can imagine things going wrong, we can use that power to imagine things going right and doing the right thing to help ourselves. Okay? So I need another courageous reader to read case study number 2. Do I have a courageous reader amongst us to read case study number 2? Can you step to the mic, please, and read case study number 2?
Case study number 2. Every day you're walking in the hallway towards class. You notice a group of students standing by their lockers. One consistently says she thinks she cute. Others in the group co-sign by agreeing loudly with hums and yas. They they laugh loudly and say things that are dem- demeaning. Demeaning. What should you do? Why?
So you're walking down the hallway, normal school day, and this happens repeatedly. There's a group of girls, and one of them is like, she thinks she cute. And I can't tell you how many times I had to deal with that. And the other group of girls are like, yes. That's all they do. But it happens like every day. What do you do about that? What do you think you should do about that?
Back to them. I would tell the teacher or a trusted adult to, to fix the situation. And
That is a good answer. I had a conversation recently with someone, and it may have been you, but the response was, we don't have to respond to everything. You want to? So we have someone who's going to share their thoughts on that, because I believe she was the one that shared that with me.
Yes. So, in that case, if you're walking down the hall and someone is obviously saying that she thinks she's all of that, and everyone is agreeing, it takes one to a level of confidence or a self-awareness to know who you are. And as a child, as a youth, that can be, you know, a gray area, because I know for myself in high school and things of that sort, I was not very confident per se, but I was more of a loner. So, but in that situation, you don't always have to respond. And I say this to my son because he is 11. Oh, someone said this or someone said this about me, and I say, well, who are you? I asked him. I said, who are you? I said, are you those things, or do you think that of yourself? And if the answer is no, then, and do they know you? Do they really know you? And if they don't really know you, then you don't have to respond to what they're saying, because they are making projections based on the fact that they don't even know who you are. So that is key, especially just knowing that sometimes it doesn't require a response. And sometimes you have to evaluate why that person is saying something about you, because it may be something in you that they want for themselves. And you may not even see that yourself. Okay. So sometimes it doesn't, I think, not responding is a response. So you can go on about your day. And if it really does bother you, let someone know. Hey, these people are bothering me. They keep saying I think I'm all that, and I'm not doing anything to them. And they may help you and encourage you the same way that I help encourage my son too. That can be a moment of empowerment or a lesson of self-awareness for the child to say, for you to identify and acknowledge who you are, know who you are, and know that just because someone says something about you doesn't mean that you have to attach yourself to that or that you have to respond to it.
And I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. What I want to do is
The right advice.
because that's part of the role of community in helping a child overcome bullying, which is why I wanted to do this workshop. Um, Maybe it's not a parent, it could be a trusted adult in our lives, but we do need to have someone we can be ourselves with, someone that we can open up to and talk about our thoughts and feelings. I just want to simply add, and then we're going to go to activity 3 so we can still have time for doing the panel discussion. How we feel is a part of who we are. And our feelings are important because it's how we connect and relate to the world around us. But our feelings are not all of who we are. That it's important to understand that. So today I feel a little sad, a little weak. You know, I'm overwhelmed by the reality of what I'm going through, right? But that doesn't mean you are weak. You can be strong as a person and still have moments where you feel weak. You can be confident about who you are as a person and still have a struggle with math. So don't let your feelings become your identity, which is why we did the self-image checklist. It's important to have a healthy understanding of who you are. Feelings included, but your feelings are not who you are. Your feelings are just a part of who you are, okay? And so the last thing we're going to talk about is self-esteem. So now I want you to take out the sheet that says Beat Bullying at the top, activity number 3, and it's related to self-esteem. And instead of going through all the questions, you can answer these questions later. But what I want to do is help you understand what self-esteem is. Okay, so please understand that as a child, I struggled with self-esteem. I think most children do, because we're not born into this world having a healthy sense of self. Our sense of self is gained over time through interaction with others, through the reality of the world that we're born into. And if those circumstances were not the best, that can have an impact on how we see ourselves. So we have to grow into this. This isn't something we just come into the world. There's a smaller percentage of children who have healthy self-esteem than students who need to grow into it. My point for saying that is this. When I was outside the classroom, I learned one thing through working with youth that changed the way I operated in working with youth. And it had a lot to do with my bossy group. There were kids in the building who had ability to talk, to speak, to articulate. They weren't afraid of adults. They would speak their minds, say what needed to be said. They complained about the school, and my thing was, well, then we need to make it better. Okay, be the change you want to see. That became our motto. And what began to happen, I told the kids, if you have an idea, find a group of kids that will want to help you. Tell me your idea. I'm going to send you to the principal. If he approves it, it's your responsibility to make it happen. And the whole goal was to change the school community, make it fun, to make it more interesting for their peers, which is what we did from 2007 to 2010. It got to the point where the principal was like, stop sending me these kids. But what I learned over that time, I saw kids, when I met them in 9th grade, they were getting into trouble. One child went so far as to say they didn't have a healthy relationship with their mom. Mom came up to the school, was like, what is she talking about? By the time those two kids in particular were seniors, the SGA, the Honor Society, were pursuing these kids to want them to be a part of their program. I was kind of upset with that because it was taking them away from me. But those were my bossy kids. Those were the kids who weren't necessarily academically strong, but they were strong in character. They were strong in their ability to articulate, to communicate, to say what needs to be changed, and also had the umption to want to do something about it. And so they were given opportunity, and they took advantage of it. So what I learned to say with children moving forward after 2010, because I had to come back to the classroom for the last 12 years of my career, self-esteem. Let me help you out with this, and then we're going to do our panel discussion. We are taught that self-esteem is what someone says to us to make us feel good about ourselves. That is not self-esteem. That's encouragement or affirmation. We are also taught that someone can ruin our self-esteem by something they say to us, which is not true either. That's just mean words. No one can affect your self-esteem but you. If something said to you lowers your self-esteem, what I would suggest is that you already have low self-esteem. The way you build your self-esteem is through the activities I just shared with you. You have to take inventory of who you are. You have to remind yourself of who you are. You have to acknowledge areas of need for growth and identify behaviors that will help you get there. And then, in being honest, I have to just start doing it. And then I will recognize my own growth. And we all know what happens when we see growth. We get excited. We feel good. It makes us feel good about ourselves when I get that good grade on my report card, on my assignment. When I start seeing the results of what I'm doing, it makes me feel better about myself. So self-esteem, the word esteem means to honor, to hold in high regard, to value in a significant way, self-worth. So self-esteem, self-honor, self-value. What are you thinking? What are you saying? And what are you doing to honor yourself? So if I put more onus on what I need to do to feel good about myself, now it's not contingent upon what anyone says to me. I'll give you a perfect example. Dr. Ben Carson, when he was in elementary school, he thought he was dumb. His mother tried to tell him, no, you're not, you're smart. And no matter how much she told him, it didn't improve his performance. And then one day she came home, she said, you're going to stop watching TV, you're going to go to the library, you're going to read, you're going to improve in your math. And he listened to her. By the time he left middle school, he was a top performing middle school student. By the time he left high school, he graduated second in his class. And then he went on to go to Yale. And if you don't know, Dr. Ben Carson was the first African-American male to perform surgery that separated two Siamese twins. So his self-esteem began to flourish when he did what his mother told him, which was to do better academically. So the energy that he put into it is what helped him become. So the last thing I want to share, in your bag, you have a book written by my son and my daughter. Red, Yellow, Green, Insights on Dating for Teens. My son decided by the time he was a senior in high school to write a book based on his own journey of wanting to date, him and my daughter. And I knew this was coming as a parent because of my work with teens. And I encouraged him to put what he learned in a book so other kids could benefit from it. So this book is now yours, and my daughter has information in there as well for females. There is also a journal in there for you that you can use to write your thoughts. I've been journaling since 2003, and what I didn't know growing up, even in marriage, how important it was to talk about how you feel, which is part of the reason why I ended up getting divorced. I started journaling. Journaling taught me how to put words to how I feel, to actually use words like angry, frustrated, sad, disappointed. I didn't know how to do that. And journaling taught me how to do that. I use journaling for a whole host of things now, but that's what I learned from journaling. Journaling also helped me to understand better why I feel the way I do, which is important. Why is this feeling even existing? What's causing it? Which I couldn't do either. So that was important. And also, there are cookies in there, as well as Starburst chews, and you can keep the pen. What I would love for you to do before you leave today, the last sheet, it's a feedback form. I'd love to get your thoughts on this workshop today.
Thoughts on how the workshop is today and what we can do to improve, if any, or any suggestions that you have. Anyone?
Is there one young person who would like to come to the mic and just share what they thought about today's workshop? Okay.
Um,
Tell us your name.
my name is Elijah, and I think the workshop was cool.
Okay. Why was it cool? Why was it cool?
'Cause
Okay. All right. You just think it was cool? Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Elijah.
I think the workshop was a good opportunity to like express our feelings to each other and mostly to ourselves to really learn about ourselves.
Great answer.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
I enjoyed the workshop today. Um, I find it like inspiring, and I hope that people who are watching this, I hope that they find this very helpful, and I hope that they will learn how to express their feelings and learn how to not to be afraid to ask for help if they are like being bullied or seeing someone getting bullied. So I find this very helpful.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank This has really been great, and I know that you probably all can share with us even more things today, because we just also want to just mention, we know even text and getting group text messaging, that's bullying. online social media. It's a lot more than when we was young and Cortland and I was young coming up, because it was more verbal in your face. Nowadays, you all have to deal with texting, social media, posting, so that makes it even that much more difficult. So we appreciate you all being honest and sharing with us the things that you know. Once the camera go off, if you'd like to talk to us off camera and just share more things that help us as adult to know what we need to work on and how to improve to better serve you. And then also, I like always to end the program and saying thank you all for opening up to share about it. But also, let's take a moment and think about the bullier, because sometimes they all just need attention as well. Somebody to reach out to them. Because in one, I always like to share one story. In one incident, working with the police chief Ayers, he had told us and worked and shared this story about a young guy was going to school bullying kids every day and taking their lunch money. And when he was brought into the school to see about the situation, when he went home and followed the kid home, kind of found out they was neglected. No one was home. He was a little boy stealing money to take care of three siblings that he had at home. And that's why he was bullying people. So sometimes, when bullies, or the Crystal brought up another point, sometimes when bullies tease you or say things, it's because they see something in you that they wish they get, or they seeing that people like you or love you, and sometimes they may not feel like they being loved and liked at home. So we need to also, just encourage and see why the bullying is being doing the bullying as well. So this has been great. It's been very helpful. Cortland, we just love you. And I am waiting on next year to see part two. Yes. So final words, Cortland.
So I want to thank Vision and Purpose Media Productions, Karen McConnell Jones, Concern for Kids. I want to thank Bambi as well. And I want to thank you guys for being here. This presentation couldn't have happened without the support of youth. So I also want to thank the adults who brought them and my colleague who is here as well. I am a retired educator, but I haven't retired from the mission. I'm just continuing to follow the wisdom and the guidance of how I can still be impactful to engage and connect with community. My children's book, Hero, The Boy Whose Dreams Inspire Triumph, published by J Media Publishing, released this year. It's the first in a 4-part series. I want to share content with youth, with parents, with families, to give them practical strategies on how to cope with conflict, how to deal with the reality of conflict. One of the things I actually learned to say to parents during the time I was working with Erica and the National Family Resiliency Center, the best gift we can give our children is the ability to cope. And Erica shared this with me. She shared it with the group, but I was there the day she shared it, and it just resonated with me. And she said, peer pressure amongst youth today is on steroids. Karen talked about the many different ways that bullying occurs now. When we were growing up, it was just called teasing. I have friends, they would make fun of the fact that I wore glasses because they were so thick, right? Which was normal around your friends for them to do that. But it didn't change the fact that it hurt. There was an impact emotionally on what was being said. But when I got a chance to come outside the classroom, at that point, I was fine with wearing glasses. And I actually told that story, again, to help youth, because that's how we grow. We learn to create strategies that help us to deal with the situation and also move forward. So I'm actually going to gift these copies today to the youth who are present with us. And all I ask is that you submit a review on Amazon to share your thoughts, how you felt about the book, if you need an adult to help you with that. And if you're comfortable, to send me a picture through my email address. It's in the book. So I can promote it on social media to encourage others as well. So this one is endorsed. And I want to thank Lanita Hostin because she purchased 2 copies as well, but today everybody is going to walk away with a book. So here you are. This one is already endorsed. And if you could, for me, that feedback form, if you could fill it out, and I will collect it from you, and then we're going to do our panel discussion. Oh, okay. You are welcome. So does anybody have a feedback form that's already completed? If you do, you can just hand it to me. Thank you. And those of you that haven't finished, just before you leave today, if you could just allow them a moment to complete the feedback form. Do we have any who would like to go and be a part of the panel discussion? Oh, okay. So the last thing I want to share, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are also a part of our viewing audience, thank you so much for joining us. This is B.E.A.T Bullying Workshop, sponsored by me, Cortland Jones, Vision and Purpose Media Productions, and Concern for Kids, Karen McConnell Jones, and Bambi. Thank you for everyone who attended, for everyone who was a part of the viewing audience, and those who also will check out the playback. We appreciate you. All things are possible with God, including overcoming adversity. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. And thank you as well for being in attendance. And so I forgot to mention, but the book Fearless